All right, we are recording.
Okay, thank you. It is Thursday, April 10th, 2025. I am calling to order the Land Use Review Board. I am the chair, Janet Hurley, and I will ask each board member as they appear on my screen to introduce themselves. Sarah.
Sarah Hyde, present.
Alex. You're muted, Alex. Try again.
Thank you. Alex Weinhagen, present.
Brooke.
Brooke Dingledine, present.
Kirsten.
Kirsten Sultan, present.
Thank you. Do we have any agenda updates for today? Looks like none. And I guess first I will ask if there is any public comment on items that are not on the agenda. I see Thomas is in the room. Mr. Weiss, do you have any comments? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said, thank you for the invitation. I decline at the moment.
Okay, thank you. So we're gonna hop right into further discussion of the regional plan review guidelines. And I think I would like to share my screen for that. So let me try that. And can people let me know if they can see?
Yes,
the
we
part
see
one
it.
memo?
Yes.
Okay. And to start, I just want to go over a few things that raised discussion points last meeting on Monday. On page 2, there was initial suggestion was that a pre-application review committee could be formed. And, I had just suggested maybe of board members who don't reside in the region. And, I don't know how important that is. And I think Alex may have called that into question. And I realized I was driving down to Bennington this morning and I sort of think of myself as living in the Bennington region, but I actually don't. I live in the Windham region in Winhall. So, it's sort of, I was just sort of questioning whether that's a good idea or not. And I don't know if board members have an opinion on that. Anybody? Kirsten.
I mean, I think it's helpful for one or two board members to do some initial kind of intake and pre-application review. And I think I see more potential for issues when considering plan information corresponding to the town in which one may reside or own property. So less question about, the county as a whole. So I'm okay with having that, but I also don't think it's necessary. In terms of this, who don't reside in the region, highlighted language.
Brooke.
I think I agree with Kirsten. If we were dealing with town where you live and it has more of a direct impact. But I think, one of the composition issues of the board was to make sure that we were from different counties. And I wouldn't want to lose that aspect of it if there were specialized knowledge or appreciation of issues in different regions. So unless we feel like there's like a conflict of interest,
Right.
I'm not sure we need to, be a hands-off if we live in that county or region.
Yeah. Sarah
Agree.
and Alex agrees. Sarah, how about
Yep.
you?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that we all can, I think have disclosure conflicts of interest, and as long as we are open up front with those, I don't think that we necessarily need to reiterate that here.
Yeah. So I'm gonna delete that. Um, then we also discussed whether to call a staff member that helps the regional planning commissions get through our intake process, an ombuds person. Alex felt that that was probably unnecessary. You know, it may just be a matter of semantics. I do agree with Alex's point that these are fairly sophisticated applicants that we have in terms of the regional planning commissions, but they're still going to need help submitting, certainly, especially for this first round, to us in the process that we are working out. Any further thoughts on that, Sarah?
I would say that it needs to be a specific point person. I don't think that it can be bounced around. And I think for the sake of taking in forms and applications, it should be a staff person as opposed to one of us. Call it what you want, but the idea of having a dedicated specific person, I think just would make the process so much easier for us as well as the applicants.
Any other thoughts on that? No? Oh, Kirsten, and then
I
Brooke.
agree with Sarah that I think a staff person should be included in that intake activity, working with that applicant on whatever their, sort of mechanical or, sort of more sort of administrative needs may be. And it more ideally would be the same person to help ensure consistency with how we're handling these statewide, and just someone who kind of knows that system and how to do that support and interface. So but I also think it's a question for staff, like, how can this be met within,
Oh,
within
sorry.
the resources that we have?
Yeah. Brooke?
I agree. I think it's really important position. I would suggest we not use that specific term. I think it means different things to different people. And I was looking up definitions and meanings, and most often it's used as a government employee who investigates complaints against the government. So I think, yeah, definitely we need that position. Maybe we could use a different term.
I'm just gonna leave it at dedicated. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
And then I added that the draft checklist should be submitted with the draft plan. We discussed that relatively extensively last time. I did submit a revised document to you all, but I put that language in this morning, and I just wanted to flag that as new language. I also added in blue, you see a little bit more of the language from D1 in section 4348, because a question came up about the objectors and who they could be. So these 5 entities are parties by definition, and I just wanted to include that in the statute that I printed or reprinted here. So the LURB's 60-day pre-application review should be provided to the RPC in writing, and that was something that Alex questioned, and I just wanted to point out that it's my recommendation that it should be. And I talked about it being the basis for our eventual final written decision. And I just wanted to point that out. It doesn't have to be, as Alex pointed out in the last meeting. And then this written standard form response could then later serve as the basis of of our required written decision, so. Another or problem that Alex pointed out was that I had 120 days for as early as the final plan submission would come. That is incorrect. It was a matter of jumbled neurons and funny math in my head. So basically, after 2 months at least, the Regional Planning Commission could submit a final plan application to us. I think it'll be more like after 90 days, because I don't think that they're going to hold their 2 required hearings, one on top of the other. You know, there may be an occasion where they do, but I think it's going to be a few months before we see a final application. Kirsten, I'm sorry, I see your hand up.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted to very quickly go back to what I thought I heard you say about how the written pre-application review from the LURB will form the basis of the final review. I guess I would envision that often that would be the case if there's no fundamental difference between the draft and final versions, but the final review could vary. I mean, if an outcome of the draft plan submittal is that there's some, you know, some things that change or some deficiency or what have you, then there, you know, it's going to be its own thing. Were you meaning as to format or expected content? Like,
I think we can go over those details, but absolutely, the final is
Okay.
going to be the final, and
Yeah.
it will be based on the final plan submission. And
yeah, okay.
if deficiencies are addressed, they're addressed. So,
Yeah.
um, so then we come to this, the objections, and this is section 4348. There are 2 interested parties that can object, and they are a 20-person petition or the parties that were entitled to notice under under section D or subsection D1. So Brooke had pointed to section 4476 in statute, which allows for it outlines a process by which a request for formal review of the sufficiency of an adopted regional plan can be challenged, or actually just sort of re-reviewed. The problem with this is that this section makes no mention of the Land Use Review Board, and it's the review panel that is formed. So what it reads is a request for formal review of the sufficiency of an adopted regional plan or amendment, or any other decision by a regional planning commission, shall be to the regional review panel created under section 4305 of this title. Title 24, section 4305 was repealed in 2009. So that review panel is no longer defined in statute. And because that section 4476 was not updated to include the Land Use Review Board, I don't see it as relevant to our review. So I just wanted to revisit that. Rebecca, I think you, or was it Jenny? I ran this by our legal team, and I think it was Jenny actually that concurred with my my non-legal analysis after
This
reading
is
those
Jenny.
sections.
Yeah, yes, I concur. I would also note that the language in that section says that the standing is specifically for the purposes of that section, not 43, 48. So
Correct. Yeah. So, this next highlight on page 4, is just to highlight that we have very little time to make that final written decision after we close a hearing. And I just wanted to point that out again. So the committee that we may form to do a pre-application review could also be carried into the final review, and perhaps the board the board members or member on that committee could draft a final decision and include and take note of any board feedback during that that hearing, as well as the objectors and whatnot. So in any case, we're going to have to devise a final plan, a final decision relatively quickly. So I think having some consistency between the pre-application review and the final review is a good idea. Having that that already written determination for the pre-application as a basis to, work on the other. And we are also required to reference any objectors and to deal with those each in turn. Kirsten.
Just quickly, I'm also noting that we are to provide a form for objectors.
Yeah.
That's part of
Yeah.
our.
Yep, we did I did point that out last meeting, and we also need to provide that form on the website. We could probably disseminate it to the regional planning commissions as well. But yeah, we need to develop a form for objectors. And we also talked about objectors providing the information that that would confirm that they are indeed one of the parties that is mentioned in 24 VSA 4348-2, or I'm sorry, I-2. So and I had a question that I'd like legal to weigh in on at some point, and that is that if the LURB gives a negative determination of compliance, and there is a resubmission from a regional planning commission, would the LURB need to hold a new hearing? Because the statute does not suggest how a resubmitted plan should be heard by the board. So that I'm just flagging as something that I would like some input from our legal team on. And then just to clarify, if an RPC, I think this is unlikely, but if an RPC after 18 months is still not able to get an affirmative determination from the LURB, all the member municipalities within that region would lose designation benefits, Act 250 exemptions, and eligibility for state infrastructure improvements. I just wasn't, I didn't list all three of those when I mentioned it last week, or not last week, but Monday. So I just wanted to be sure to do that. So that's the review sections of this memo, which is what we spent most of our time on Monday. And before moving on to criteria, does anyone have any comments on that? Okay, I don't see any. So the LURB determination must be based on whether the regional plan is consistent with state planning goals, regional plan purposes, regional plan elements, and compatibility with with adjacent regional planning areas. That's what we need to be looking at as we review. And as we discussed last time, I think that the regional plan review checklist that the RPCs have developed and that they will be submitting along with their plans will be a very good guide for us in doing that analysis, because they refer to each of these sections that I've now inserted into this memo. So, again, I changed the language this morning to should. The LURB should use the RPC checklist. The LURB should develop and populate its own parallel review form so that we can make our own determinations on each of the points. Whereas before I said could, but I think that we were fairly much in agreement that that made sense. Am I correct on that? See a thumbs up and another thumbs up and 2 nods. Kirsten.
Well, yeah, based on the prior conversation and understanding that the RPC checklist will encompass all of these elements. Like
It does, yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
in
no,
fact,
yeah.
it's
Did
already
they-
posted on our website for Monday's meeting, because we're going to be looking at the second memo, and I referred to the checklist and to the mapping methodology as attachments to that second memo. So the
Does-
latest versions of the VAPTA methodology, the mapping methodology, and of the checklist were provided to me earlier this week, and they are now linked to Monday's meeting. So, the plans must be in line with statutory goals. There are statewide general goals, but then there are specific goals as well. They are all laid out here. The checklist also references each of them, and the checklist allows for each RPC to report how the plan meets each of those goals. The blue text here is just referring to a section that will be updated in 2034. Is it 2034? No, 2028, sorry. So as ANR is developing its standards for river corridors and flood hazard areas, that is just an update that we'll see in time. And again, here's the shoulds, and I think I just wanted to point out that I changed those. The other things that the regional plans must be consistent with are the purposes of a regional plan. They're outlined in statute in 4347. So those are listed here. And the last is that the regional planning commissions must have all of the required elements as outlined in statute, of which there are, is it 12? Not quite 12, because 6 was repealed. So 10, actually. So we also need to look at each of those elements and make sure that each plan has those elements. Again, the checklist references all of those, and we can use that, we'll use that as a guide. And then the standard of our review is defined in statute. And this is 24 VSA section 4301 F1 standard of review. And basically the and also if we find that something is not compatible with an adjacent plan There's specific language that explains what the Regional Planning Commission needs to address in order for that to be okay. So that's, so the idea is that each board member will read the plan and participate in the public hearing unless one is recused due to a conflict of interest. I think that's okay with everyone. I think that makes sense. This is a decision of the board that we need to make, so I think everybody should read the plan. And again, once the hearing is closed, I think the deliberation should be an open session. I see no reason why they shouldn't be. And do we have agreement on that point among board members? I see a thumbs up.
I'm not aware of any reason why we would need to not do that
Deliberate
in open
in
session. I
closed
mean,
session, right?
there might be some legal issue or question that comes up that we need to go into executive session to confer with our attorneys,
Yeah.
but not for
Yeah.
the
Not for a
general
deliberative
discussion.
session. Yeah.
But I'm
so-
interested to know, how the other board members feel about that, or,
Well, Alex gave a thumbs up.
okay, yeah.
Brooke?
This is not a quasi judicial function. Do we even have the ability to go into a deliberative session for this decision?
Maybe not. But there was suggestion at some point that we could, and I don't think that we should, even if it is allowable. So, Sarah?
I was just gonna say, I don't see something at this time. I have a hard time working with finance right now with so many things changing, so I wouldn't do it in a way that would necessarily preclude us forever, but I would sort of agree with, I don't see anything at this time.
Okay. And then I just reiterated that we have to do this quickly, issue a decision within 15 days of the close of a hearing. I had with staff input on somebody being assigned a task of drafting the written decision. Maybe staff assistance is needed, but I think this is a board decision, and I think I would like to take those words out, even though I was the one that put them in initially. So everybody good with that? I'm gonna hit delete. All right, Sarah.
Don't hit delete.
Why?
Too late. I think to talk to Kirsten's point before of, if for some reason we needed to talk with our attorneys on something. I'm not sure that you need to have it in here for it to happen.
Right.
But I think that, again, let's not preclude ourselves from.
Right.
Right.
I think hitting delete will allow us that opportunity. So, and then, so let's say we close a hearing at a Monday meeting, by not the next Monday, but the Monday thereafter, we need to have a decision written and approved by the full board. So I was thinking that, that the subcommittee or the board member that drafts the decision should provide that to the board as soon as possible. And that at that second Monday, we do any tweaking maybe, and actually somebody makes a motion to accept that decision. So does that sound good? All right. Any questions on this as a whole? This first memo, the general review of a regional plan. Brooke?
Just on that last, on the, final, vote by the board, do we want to make sure that we invite the, like not create another hearing, but just to make sure that it's not just put on our agenda and we don't notify the parties, that to the application? Should we make a point to be sure that they are notified, or is it happening so quickly? It's probably, obviously they'll know when we're doing it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty obvious. I think it could be in our guidelines that we intend to do this within 2 weeks at a public meeting. So
Okay.
I think they'll be in tune with it. Any other? Oh, Charlie. Hi. Go ahead.
I just enabled your microphone.
Thank you. I was noticing I was paralyzed for a moment. Thank you. Just a quick question, and thank you, Chair Hurley and the board members for working on this. Is there, as you're reviewing it, I didn't see, and it just occurred to me, like, I'm wondering if there might be a point where you might have some questions, like you want some things clarified, or maybe you're looking for where something is, that was this particular requirement addressed. And I'm just wondering if there's a point in that hearing process or someplace after where you could ask us as the applicant in this case to, provide some clarifying or respond to a question or something.
Yeah.
So anyway, just,
Yeah,
I don't know how formal or informal this might be, but.
Yeah, I think that pre-application review would be the first instance for that, Charlie, and hopefully that's where most of those questions could be posed. And I think during the hearing, the first thing we would do is allow board members to ask questions of the applicant before opening it up to everybody else, perhaps. Sarah.
Yeah.
I was just going to offer, I think in terms of the swim lanes and where we're thinking in terms of process and procedure is if we needed to, we could avail ourselves of a hearing recess order with a formal request at the end of the process. But I think that in conversation, it was, we hopefully wouldn't get that far in, and hopefully, as you said, it would be more towards the beginning of the process that we'd look for that guidance. But I think there is, if worse comes to worse, that hearing recess order.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I do hope these things get addressed at the beginning, at the front end, and not at the back end here, right? Thank you.
Let's make that 60-day pre-application worth something, right?
Right.
Make it worthwhile. Kirsten.
Well, yeah, just to confirm my understanding of how that 60-day pre-application review will work on the LURB side of things, you have this, 1 or 2 members of the board, completing that review, but then bringing it to the board for some form of recommendation or decision-making by the board. Like it is, my interpretation of it is the board that is, as a body, issuing the 60-day review.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point. I will add some language in here, perhaps right before this paragraph on page 2, that the subcommittee will report to the board with its findings and those of the partner agencies before sending it off to the RPC. Does that sound good?
Well, right, before the board will take any formal action on it. Yeah.
Right. The board would okay it, make its decision, and then send it off to the RPC. Yeah. So I don't know if you can still see my screen, right? So right here, I'll add that. Sound
Great,
good?
thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Brooke.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we do have the authority to recess the hearing, because it doesn't indicate it in 4348, but my assumption is since the 15 days starts at the close of the hearing, I would assume that we have the right to recess it if there were additional information required or, I just want to be sure we do have that power. I think so because it says from the close of the hearing, and I guess we're in charge of closing it or recessing it. But just to make sure we have that safeguard in place in case there's something missing that nobody realized earlier.
Can we make a note for legal to look into that for us?
That'd be great.
Right. Anything else on memo part 1? From anybody? Great. I think we're like way early.
10 minutes.
Stop sharing. And let me get the agenda back up on a screen for myself.
That might be,
Kirsten, go ahead.
this probably goes without saying, but I was envisioning that in terms of having to turn around that the final decision within 15 days, I think we'll want to have like a template all queued up and
Yep.
largely populated. Yeah.
Yeah, that's in there.
Yeah.
Form.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. Anything else from anyone? Public, board, staff?
Mr. Weiss has a comment.
Great, go ahead, Thomas.
If what you've been discussing is part 1, what are the other parts?
Part 2 is going to be specifically focused on the future land use map and the Tier 1B reviews and determinations. So it's all part of, well, those can come separate from the regional plan at some point. I think everything's going to come together initially. So the first 11 regional plans will include all of that. But the future land use map approval and any amendments in the future and the Tier 1B requests and any changes to those. So we're going to start talking about that on Monday. The memo is already on the website associated with Monday's meeting, along with the RPC regional plan review checklist and with the VAPTA future land use mapping methodology, the latest versions of each of those.
Okay, thank you. And
Yep.
what about the color-coded version of what you were discussing today? I didn't see that on the site yet.
I'm sorry, which version?
The color-coded version you were working off of today.
That was just on my screen. I just was highlighting those areas because I wanted to be sure to talk about them today.
Okay, but the version
That
that was
memo
on the
is
screen
on
that
our-
I checked a few minutes ago was April 3rd.
Sorry, say that again.
So the version that is on the site now was dated April 3rd. So I'm not sure whether you were highlighting your April 3rd one or
No.
whether it was the new revision.
No, it was a revised based on our conversations that we had on Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and I should change, you're right, Thomas, I should change the date.
Oh,
I'll do that.
Yeah, so the one that's on the website is the one that she was just working from. It just has the incorrect date listed at the top of the memo, but that is the
I
most
didn't have the highlight. Got it.
correct. She added
Well-
the highlighting for ease of
That's okay.
editing live.
I have
That's-
what you were discussing. That's all I need to know.
Yeah, but that's almost true, Maddie. I did make some changes this morning and I pointed those out when I went through it on screen with you. I added the statutory parties to section D1. And I had some added text that I had in red that I did today, this morning when I went through it, in preparation for today's meeting. So this is now version 3, and I will provide that perhaps to be posted with Monday's meeting. After I add that bit that Kirsten suggested, which I think is a great idea, that we bring the pre-application review to the board before finalizing it and shipping it off to the RPC. Kirsten.
Yes, I feel like we have a little bit of extra time here. Maybe I'll share that something I've been wondering about is, so for the element of the plan review where one must verify compatibility with the adjacent regional plan. So how does that work when the adjacent regional plan isn't to the 10 category of future land use format yet? Do you kind of get an automatic pass because there's nothing to measure against? Or is there an advantage to the first person in the door? Like, so how do we do that?
What a great question. Hey, Charlie, you got an answer for that?
I will note that all regional planning commissions and all regional plans already have a future land use map. So we're not starting from a blank slate. So, but I hear you, there won't be, an adjacent region may not be up to date with all the new requirements. And we actually just spread all of our maps out last Thursday to kind of start talking about this issue. So we're working on it actively, but hopefully should document either compatibility or where there's an issue.
Yeah.
When we in that section of the review.
Yeah, the checklist includes that. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Anything else before we move on to studies and reports? Okay, I don't see anything. So I think I'm going to go again to each of you as you appear on my screen. So Sarah, do you have any updates for us?
So Tier 1A, I am making progress. I'm speaking with both ANR and DHP tomorrow, and we'll be drafting further after that, as well as legal. So anticipating hopefully early next week, having another draft to get back out to the board well in advance of the 21st.
Okay, thank you. Alex, do you have any updates for us?
Just that Annette Smith and I have had some back and forth recently regarding the stakeholder group. Annette's so good at keeping me honest about, who's there and who's not there. And so with her encouragement, I've reached out to a couple more ecologists, which I wanted to have on the steering committee, the working group stakeholders anyway, but felt that we were getting a little too many people and it was going to be hard to manage. In any case, Liz Thompson, who many of you probably know, agreed to join the stakeholder group. And so very excited to have her with us. I'm playing phone tag with a professor at Middlebury College, Mark Lappin, in hopes that he might be able to join us as well. And because Annette has been so diligent on that front, I invited her to join us too, and she's excited to be part of the group. So just wanted to give you a heads up that the stakeholder group got a little bigger today, and I will be updating the stakeholder list for the website shortly to reflect these new additions. Other than that, no real updates except that I'm making phone calls to all the stakeholders this week and next to just do table setting and make sure everybody has what they need so we can make progress right out of the gate on the 23rd.
And I'll just point out to those who, well, maybe everybody here knows, but I don't know. Liz Thompson is a naturalist who has been working at a statewide level for certainly more than 20 years. And the Middlebury professor teaches what?
He is also an ecologist, and teaches sort of, landscape level ecology. And yeah, he also works in the private sector. So he's got experience both at the academic level and in the field.
And Annette, of course, with Vermonters for a Clean Environment. So. And that's it, Alex?
Yep.
Okay, Brooke.
Alex and I have sent out invites to all of the listed statutory parties. Today I'm finishing the selections that we made for attorneys and engineers, and I still have for-profit email housing folks that we selected to send those out. So everyone will be completed with their invitations today. I met with Rachel today to go over more clearly what we need in terms of support and staff for the various meetings. We are considering adding one more stakeholder meeting because we're getting a very robust response to wanting to come to the fourth stakeholder meeting. That's the court versus the board debate. And we did invite a number of attorneys, all of whom are very knowledgeable and have a long history, many of them at both venues. And their input is very important, but I want to be mindful that we don't want to dominate that conversation. And so I thought if we provided a second opportunity for that particular topic, it would be useful. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm waiting for the responses and to which stakeholder meetings people would like to attend, and then we can make a final decision. We have a hold right now on a date, time, and place, a couple weeks after the last meeting. So that's where we're at right now, and folks are very positive and happy to engage. So it looks like it's good. I think the trick is really to make sure that we, like Alex was saying, don't get too many people so that we can't have a discussion and it ends up being, okay, tell us what you want. And you have 3 minutes, we really were trying to facilitate more of a conversation. So that's where we're at. And Rachel's been wonderful in making sure I understand all the components. So we're moving right along.
Thank you. Kirsten.
So, all of the invitations had gone out. There were a couple that went out this week, and most, but not everyone, has RSVP'd. So I'm still finalizing the sort of roster of participants. And I did complete the file review that FPR had not been able to initiate. So, or I think they've done some work on it, but they basically asked me to do that element. So, and that's been very informative, although a little time consuming on my end. And I'm working next on an agenda and, compiling some background information I'm hoping to send that out by the end of tomorrow, so that the board would have a chance to at least see it on, Monday next week. I think I'm sort of on the schedule for a small amount of time. I'm not.
Still going for them.
What's that? Oh, so that's where things are. We're just gearing up for the meeting that's still scheduled for April 22nd. And it is a pretty large group.
How large?
Well, it's going to depend on, how many people, like, some of the organizations that were invited, I've said, tell us who in your membership. Please, confirm names and email addresses.
Sorry, somebody's got their sound on and they're talking. Oops.
I think they were having technical difficulties at
Oh.
10 Baldwin, so we might want to hit a
Uh-oh.
pause for a minute until they come
Okay.
back.
Okay.
So I guess I'll just,
Well, hold off.
okay.
Sorry about that. We just lost internet here for a minute. Can you hear us and see us
Yes,
again?
we can.
Thank you.
And we've
Great.
been silent since we lost you, so.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So, Kirsten was
Oh,
describing,
no.
did you lose? We can still see you and hear you.
Should I try a hotspot, do you think?
So somehow she's lost us, but we haven't lost them. Oh, wait, is everybody
don't-
frozen or we're just being
I don't-
quiet?
I don't see them.
I
Oh,
can
No,
see them.
They froze.
I see them, and I just muted them for the moment so that they can do what they need to do.
okay.
I was trying to mute them too, Alex. You beat me to it.
And they're gone. Okay, so we'll
Yep.
wait for them to return.
Who cursed us by saying that we were ahead of schedule?
Yeah, that was me. Should have knocked on wood.
So Janet, this points to a good technical question.
Sure.
Do you have Maddie's phone number handy so that you can text her when something like this happens and communicate that way about whether we're still going to be able to move forward or not?
Oh, yeah, I could do that.
I mean, she's probably busy working it out, but we need to have
Yeah.
that protocol so that if this happens, we can decide what to do.
Yeah.
Excuse me. This is Rebecca Shalifo. I think we just need to be really careful because the open meeting rules require that we have a hybrid location for all discussions of the board, right, in an open meeting. And so even this, Alex, which is completely technical, we should wait until we have the physical location back online.
Oh my God.
I hear
I
you,
hear
Rebecca.
Maddie again.
Okay, thank you.
Maddie, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can now.
So we can hear you all the way through this, but somehow you lose us.
Okay.
Are we recording still?
Yeah, it does look like
Okay.
we're still recording.
Okay. And should we?
All right. Keep going.
Okay, we'll keep going. So
So-
sorry, Kirsten, if you want to try to pick up where you thought you left off.
Yeah, so you were asking me roughly how many people, and so it's still unknown what the final head count will be, but I would say it will be at least 15 people and possibly up to 20 people, which is a big number.
Yeah, okay. Any other updates or questions from anybody else about the board updates? I guess I didn't give an
Janet-
update, but
Janet, I'm going to interrupt really quickly because if you can see that the TV screen in
oh, they
the
froze.
main office froze again.
Darn.
I'm sorry.
I wonder if we should.
I can give you a number for Maddie Cotter if you want to call
Well,
her
I have
directly.
one, I think. Let me see.
Okay, let's try again.
Yeah, I have Maddie's number.
We're back, maybe.
Okay. Did you get Kirsten's final piece of her update? No?
I'll just
I
repeat it
mean, the
quickly.
meeting,
Oh. Are we good to go?
yeah, try.
Okay. Janet had asked how many people will be in the wood products manufacturing study stakeholder group, and I had said at least 15 and possibly as many as 20, that it's a pretty large group.
And are you still there? Can still hear us?
Yes.
Okay. So I think I can forgo an update as we are spending this week and next week working on my spearheaded task. So are there any other comments from anybody present on the board's work? No? Okay. Then let's move on to discussion and possible action on appeals enforcement and attorney-client memoranda. Do I have a motion from a board member?
I'll move that we enter executive session with our legal team to discuss pending appeals and enforcement matters, to receive attorney-client privileged advice, and I move to make the finding that premature public disclosure of such information would prejudice the board or others.
Thank you. Uh-oh. Oh, okay. The
Second,
Ken Baldwin is still there, correct?
Yes.
Yes. You seconded Alex, is that correct?
that's right.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, hearing none, will all those who are in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I saw 5 hands and I heard 5 ayes. We will be in executive session and will return prior to adjournment. Thank you.
So we can do this in one of two ways. I can bring the
For Sarah and Alex. There's Sarah. Where's Alex? There he is. Okay. And we're still recording, correct, Maddie?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Alex and Sarah, one of you want to go first with a motion? Sarah, go ahead.
I move to accept the AOD counteroffer enforcement docket 2021_017 for $1,500 in penalty plus enforcement cost and recording fee.
Seconded by Alex. Any further discussion on this?
I just want to make sure it's clear that the $1,500 is the penalty, plus there are also enforcement and recording costs.
Okay, yep. $15 page.
That was my understanding of the motion. Yes, 1,500 plus.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. That motion passes.
So I have a separate motion to make, unless you want to make it, Brooke. I think maybe you were thinking you were going to, but I'm happy to. Okay, so I'll make a motion that we authorize enforcement staff to issue a notice of alleged violation regarding case 2021_88, Neil Smith, Huntington.
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Kirsten seconded. Brooke thirded. Any discussion on that one? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That was 5 hands up and 5 ayes. That was unanimous as well. And I think all we have left is adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 That is 5. Thank you, everybody, for participating. See you next time.
Thanks.